Adler Berriman Seal, better known as Barry Seal, was born on July 16, 1939, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He became the youngest pilot in the United States, a skill he used to become one of the wealthiest men in the country in the 1980s. He achieved this by transporting illegal goods for the Ochoa brothers, Pablo Escobar's associates who helped him establish the Medellin cartel. However, his downfall came when he believed he was smarter than the Colombian drug traffickers and became an informant for the DEA and the CIA. That was his death sentence. Barry showed his fascination with airplanes from a young age. His father, a follower of the Ku Klux Klan, sent him to aviation school when he was just a teenager. He became the youngest pilot in the United States at the age of 15, and by 16, he already had his official license. At 26, he received authorization to pilot a Boeing 707 and worked in the Civil Air Patrol. In 1964, he joined the 245th Engineer Battalion based in San Luis and left in 1966. Shortly after, he started working for Howard's Hoggets, where he remained until his dismissal in July 1972 due to a legal case involving plastic explosives smuggling. The case was ultimately dismissed due to procedural errors, but Seal had already lost his job. According to his biographer, Seal became the youngest captain of a Boeing 707 and later a captain of a Boeing 747. After several years as a commercial pilot, Seal assisted the CIA with illegal flights that brought heroin into the United States to finance various conflicts worldwide, primarily anti-communist operations. However, his ambition led him to prison quickly. In 1979, he was arrested in Honduras on drug trafficking charges and spent 9 months in a prison in Tegucigalpa, where he met Colombian pilot William Rodriguez, who proposed that he work for the Medellin cartel. Upon his release, Seal excelled as a pilot of his own aircraft. He owned 4 DS-10 planes and liked to call them the Marijuana Air Force. He became known for his audacity in smuggling drug-laden planes from Colombia to the United States. Within the inner circle of the cartel, Seal was known as Mackenzie. The warm relationship between Barry Seal and Pablo Escobar is confirmed with this anecdote. One day, Pablo told his son to watch the spectacular landing of a crazy gringo on the runway of Hacienda Napoles, which was only 900 out of the necessary 1,200 meters for the landing of a Douglas DS-3 aircraft. The plane was full of animals for the Hacienda's zoo. That's when the flights to South America started, changing their destiny. With another pilot friend, they began a small marijuana trafficking business during the height of the hippie movement and protests against the Vietnam War. The profits were juicy enough for them to acquire their own fleet of planes. Towards the end of the 80s, they met the Ochoa brothers. Jorge Luis Ochoa had already started sending drugs from Colombia to the United States and soon partnered with the feared Pablo Escobar to found the well-known Medellin cartel. They included his 2 younger brothers in the project to form the Ochoa clan. Together with their other partners, Gonzalo Rodriguez Gacha and Carlos Leder, Barry organized the importation of thousands of kilograms of narcotics through a clandestine airstrip in rural Arkansas. According to several North American media sources, he amassed a fortune of over $50 million at the time and established significant contacts with corrupt authorities who kept him in the game. This continued until the CIA and DEA, who were seeking strategies to win the Cold War and their fight against communism, approached him. That was the beginning of the end. Around that time, the Medellin cartel used Nicaragua as a point of shipment and takeoff to the United States. Amidst the revolution and the rise of the left-wing Sandinista army that controlled power at the time, the cartel used drug money to finance their revolution, aiming to counteract the exposure of socialism. U.S. authorities exposed Barry's criminal past and arrested him in Florida in 1983, forcing him to cooperate in exchange for avoiding imprisonment. They began monitoring his flights, filled his aircraft with cameras, and quickly turned him into the most important witness in DEA history, according to the Philadelphia newspaper. However, the happiness wouldn't last long for the Americans. By 1984, cartel members were already fleeing from Colombian authorities who sought them dead or alive after the assassination of Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara Bonilla. On the night of May 25, 1984, Seal landed and ordered his co-pilot to accelerate while he looked for the right moment to take photographs. Annoyed by the noise, Escobar asked Seal to shut off the engines, but he replied that he couldn't do so because some technical issues made the departure risky. Pablo Escobar accepted the explanation. Finally, secretly, Barry Seal took covert photographs that captured the revealing images of the precise moment when Pablo, El Mexicano, and Federico Vaughan, a high-ranking official from the Nicaraguan Ministry of the Interior, collaborated with several Nicaraguan soldiers to load 400 sacks containing 600 kilos of white powder. It was the first shipment they were sending from the landing strip of the small airport in Los Braciles, located not far from Managua, the capital of Nicaragua. That same night, Seal landed at the Homestead Air Force Base in southern Florida. At that time, Escobar and Gacha were fugitives from Colombian justice, as they were wanted for the murder of Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, which occurred on April 30, 1984. The photographic sequence featuring Pablo and El Mexicano was published in several U.S. newspapers in mid-July of the following month. The visual evidence was undeniable as it caught Escobar red-handed. Barry Seal had betrayed him, and it would cost him his life. The leak of the photograph to the media caused double damage, exposing Pablo Escobar and the Mexican and implicating the Sandinista regime as being allied with the Colombian Mafia. After the scandal, Escobar and his associates found it untenable to stay in Nicaragua, and 2 months later they returned to Colombia. Pablo Escobar aimed to end Barry Seal's life as soon as possible, so he called several of his contacts in the United States. The operation remained secret, but the Senate in the United States was pressuring President Ronald Reagan for results in the fight against communism, and some of the images were leaked to the press. One media outlet even revealed that Barry Seal was an undercover government agent. The Ochoa brothers refused to believe it, said Fernando Arenas, a former pilot of Carlos Letter who worked with Seal, years later in an interview with a U.S. television channel. They, the Ochoa brothers, trusted him with everything. In Colombia, Seal got to know their family members and was treated as another member of the family. Jorge Luis Ochoa spent a lot of time with him and became like an older brother. He felt so betrayed that it was a great offense to him. Fabio Ochoa wanted to handle it personally, but Jorge convinced him not to do it due to the risks involved. Barry Seal was already sentenced, and he must have known it. The Medellin cartel offered a large sum of money to anyone who captured him and brought him to Colombia. Later, Jorge Luis Ochoa was captured in Madrid, and the U.S. government began pressuring Spain for his extradition. Based on the pilot's statements, the first person assigned to execute Seal was Max Mermelstein, a mechanical engineer from Brooklyn, New York, who also worked for the cartel and had a well-earned reputation. Over several years, Mermelstein successfully smuggled 56 tons of drugs into the United States, which generated him enormous profits. Mermelstein had joined the organization in the late 1970s, through his trusted contact in the United States, Rafael Cardona, also known as Rafico. However, on the morning of July 5, 1985, just as the plot to end Seal's life was advancing, Mermelstein was arrested while driving his luxurious Jaguar car. Initially, Barry Seal was calm because he believed it was only a matter of time before the Medellin cartel took care of his bail and his family, as they had agreed since the 1970s when he started working for Escobar. However, that wasn't the case. Rafico made the mistake of not paying the $550,000 bail set by the judge. Instead, he chose to threaten Seal to prevent him from testifying against him and his associates. To save his own life, the cartel sent 3 men to the United States, Luis Quintero Cruz, Leonardo Vasquez, and Miguel Velez. Seal had obtained parole and was freely moving around Florida, but on February 19, 1986, he was intercepted in Baton Rouge and fatally shot 6 times while driving his Cadillac, as reported by the New York Times at the time. After Seal's death, Jorge Luis Ochoa was released in Spain and returned to Colombia to continue his business. The 3 men who carried out the hit were arrested and sentenced to life imprisonment. Among the Ochoa brothers, only Fabio Ochoa paid for the crime. He was captured in Colombia in 2001 and extradited to the United States, where he is currently serving a 30-year prison sentence. Jorge Luis and Juan David took advantage of a decree by Colombian President Cesar Gaviria that guaranteed reduced sentences and extradition for drug lords who surrendered voluntarily. Jorge Luis is now free, while Juan David died of a heart attack in 2013. Tell us what you think about this great story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the notification bell. Until the next video.